What is up, ladies and gentlemen? I am here right now with Alex Faber. Griff will join us shortly, but Alex is a Michigan State hockey writer for the State News, and he covers the Red Wings for OctopusThrower.com. Alex, how the heck are you?
I'm fantastic. I need some hockey talk in my life with the postponements of the games this week. It's just not been the same, and something's missing in my life.
No, it is. It honestly, it's like the worst. Dude, it's like, and it sucks too because, like I was actually talking with you like earlier about this. My grandpa's Xfinity like account got hacked or something like that, and he had to change the password. And like all of his like, I think his computer went down, like his emails, like he had to, I don't know. Anyway, so I usually use his login to log into Bally Sports. And because it's not on Fubo TV, like, you know, Bally Sports isn't on anything, so I can't watch any Red Wings games unless they're like exclusive to ESPN Plus. So I've been out here without. I didn't get to see the Larkin hat trick. I didn't get to see really anything. And but dude, it is going to be. It's the best time too to talk about hockey since nobody will have their hockey fix for a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But.
Gap.
I know. It's crazy. We're going to talk about Red Wings in a couple seconds, but I really wanted to get into Michigan State as it's kind of like the halfway point in their season with their hockey team. So first off, actually, I just want to go into your background and so tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do with the State News.
So this was actually my first semester with the State News.
Okay.
Hired in. I transferred from Mid Michigan College a couple of years ago to Michigan State. Love it here. Decided to finally get some on the ground experience. So applied at State News. Started on the culture desk actually. As much as I love everyone on the culture desk, just wasn't my place. Just wasn't a good fit for me. So I eventually got slotted over to the sports. Covered a few events. I covered volleyball. That was super fun. Covered one other of those women's soccer. The women's soccer team was really good this year, so that was fun too. But then I finally got that hockey beat. That's what I've been looking for since I got at the State News. I love hockey. I'm a big hockey guy, and that's been my main focus right now. Just eating, breathing, everything with the Michigan State hockey team.
Well, and it helps too that they're actually kind of on a turnaround, kind of year, sort of. It's sort of a rebuild, not really. Since you can't really call it a rebuild, I guess when it's like a fourth year head coach or whatever Danton Cole is in. But it's nice to see a nice bounce back. I suppose, and it certainly helps again when they're like actually good. What do you think? Is like driving Michigan State's success?
So, at the core, I think what's driving their success is actually something that's been there for a long time, and that's good goaltending and good defense. Under Dan Cole, even in years where they weren't great or they didn't live up to expectations, they had good defense. You weren't going to score a lot of points typically against them. And if the defense had lapses, you'd have a goalie right in the net to make those saves. And this year, it's Drew DeRitter and Pierce Charleston. Both have been excellent. But I think that's why the team is decent. I think why they're improving is because of the offense. The offense has struggled past couple of years, whether it be just competing with a lot of the high-flying offenses in the Big Ten, like a Michigan, like a Notre Dame at times. It can be hard to keep up with, and they've had trouble with that. But this year, they're really starting to find their groove and actually putting up some goals. I think I've really been impressed, too, by how the defensemen have been kind of contributing. Dennis Sasana, I think, is fourth in points scored this year. He's been excellent on the back end. I really like what he brings. And he's not just a playmaker. He's not just a puck mover. He doesn't just collect assists. I think he has 4 goals or 5 goals on the season. So he can activate successfully from the blue line. The Krieger brothers are like that, too. If they're not taking an untimely penalty, they're typically nabbing a goal or an assist.
I know, yeah. The penalties are killer sometimes.
It seems like clockwork.
Well, and exactly, and I think like someone had mentioned, I can't remember if it was probably the NBCSN broadcast of that Notre Dame series, and I love that, by the way, because you never get good college hockey on any televised, like in God forbid Big Ten network put up a good program.
Programs.
But like big plus, I just can't deal with it. But yeah, like yeah, that whole the stats on NBCSN were just key. But yeah, they said like I think against Penn State the week before they play Notre Dame, I think what that was, they had like half their points were against or I mean from defensemen, which is crazy, right? Like just half your points are coming from
Yeah.
a defense, which is I mean that's awesome. I've been impressed with Sasana. I've been impressed with Lewandowski, who before going what is it, before he didn't get a point in the first game against Notre Dame, and then scored the OT winner against Notre Dame. That was awesome. But he ended what was like an 11-game winning streak, and then DeRitter, Charleston, whenever he's been there, has been outside of that Michigan game. That's is what it is. But when he gave up the 7 goals, but other than that, like I mean, the goaltending has been great. Who would you say would be like the first half MVP?
So there are a couple. My mind is split between a couple. Um, I've got to go with DeRitter though. The other guy I was thinking of, Mitchell Lewandowski. You mentioned him already. He scored that OT winner. He's been so important for this offense this year. Leads the team in points despite missing 4 or 5 games. But it's got to be the goaltender. It's got to be Drew. There are nights where he just stands on his head. He goes out there and just has some excellent starts where he's the only reason the team wins, and that's just the definition of an MVP. He has the 4th highest save percentage in the NCAA right now at 9.45, and he has a sub 2 goals against average. He's just insane this year. He had a great year last year, and it looks like he's somehow being better. Like I can't give it to anyone but him. He's been rock solid in that crease.
And that's awesome. And it kind of leads very well into kind of my next point too, with with Danton Cole and this like tandem operation, that he sort of had between DeRitter and Charleston. And Charleston's been great. Well, outside of that Michigan game where he gave up the 7 goals, but outside of that, Charleston has kind of been I think it's like except outside of like four or so weekends, they've kind of split like the duties. And I mean, again, like after Charleston's performance against Penn State, you couldn't not play him in that Notre Dame game, and he didn't play like horribly, but again, like once you got to ride the hot hand sometimes, and that's just kind of the way it goes. But do you think that like Cole should continue to like do this sort of tandem thing with the goaltending, or do you just stick with DeRitter like 9 times out of 10?
So I liked the phrase you went with there. You stay with the hot hand, and I think that's the tandem system I would run with here. Drew is excellent in net, and he's just been fantastic. But at the end of the day, he's still a college student. He's still kind of a prospect, and there are games where, or there are weekends or days where he just needs some rest or even a mental break. Um, and if you get Charleston enough starts like they have been, he can provide you games like he did against Penn State. I mean, that Penn State game was incredible. Didn't he make like 50 saves?
Yeah, it was 50, which is
Just
the most in
something
Division One.
just crazy. Yeah, he's been. When you have a goaltender who can come out and prove that he can do stuff like that, like he hasn't been consistently as good as DeRitter, but he has games and flashes where he looks just as good. So when you have a tandem like that, I don't necessarily think it's 1A, 1B. I think you should give DeRitter a majority of the starts. But man, if Charleston comes out and says, I want a few starts because of how good I'm playing, I'd give it to him. I wouldn't say no.
What is your boldest prediction going into the second half of the season?
Bold prediction, they finish in the top 3 in the Big Ten. I
Oh
think
my
that's
goodness.
that's pretty bold, I'd say.
Yeah, that is considering you got to pass. Well, I guess they're what, 5 now, I think is what it is.
Yep.
If they finish in 3, they would pass like Ohio State, is it? No. That would be Notre Dame.
Ohio State, Notre Dame. I think Ohio, because they're above Wisconsin and Penn State right now.
Right. Penn
So
State.
they would have to pass Ohio State and Notre Dame.
Right.
and they've split the series, and both of them are on the road. I think that's
Right.
that's my main reason for this bold take. They've been on the road a lot. When they get back from this break, get a little healthy, they're going to get a lot of games at home, and they might be able to steal a few series.
Perfect. And their record at home is not bad. So that is all the Michigan State stuff I wanted to talk about today, because I again just needed to get some of this out of my system. I have been really impressed with what they've been doing, and it's been exciting. We're gonna take a quick break, and finally Griff is going to join us, and we will do that in just a moment.
Sweet.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Griff, welcome to the show. I had to unmute you, so that's
Oh,
it's
I was
exciting.
muted myself. I didn't want
Oh,
to accidentally bump into anything
that's it.
Sparty related. I'm a dirty Wolverine, so
Yeah.
it would have tainted the interview. I wouldn't want to do that.
That is a-okay. College hockey, tons of people care about it, right? So
More
yeah,
people should.
yeah.
I have followed more Michigan hockey this year than in my entire life for, several reasons. It's something to do, and
They're
also,
awesome this
you
year.
know,
Well, and they have like what
well, it's
like
just, they
four of
got
the five
they have
top
four
top
first
draft picks.
rounders. They have like
Four of the
four
top
top 10
five.
picks on their team. Like it's
Yeah.
just yeah, yeah. So kind of insane that they're all Michigan. They got a good team, and rightfully so. But I'm always a fan of when the local schools do good. I root for Michigan Tech when we get the Frozen Four. I always want it to be Michigan Tech, Michigan, MSU to be at least three of the four teams. So always root for any team with a Michigan in the name, typically, but
I
the blue win
I
out.
can't be as kind with Michigan. I'll be honest.
I
I'll
don't
cheer for
blame you.
West.
I've
I'll
met
cheer
our
for the
fans, and
Broncos. I'll
we're
cheer for
we're
those
insufferable.
Eagles. But
We're insufferable. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we are. I know we are. I've met us. We're not great, but um, shifting from the college landscape into the pros. As you alluded to with Brad, you guys are talking about, this interview is nice because everything has been delayed. Obviously, the Wings have been postponed until uh, basically through the end of the year, and then the entire NHL is suspending operations from the 22nd, so tomorrow or today, depending on when you're listening to this, through the 25th, through the holiday. Um, and it was probably the right call because I'm going to read you a little stat line here. December 19th, 8 games were scheduled, 4 were postponed. The 20th, 5 scheduled, 4 postponed. That's 80%. 21st, which is today, 10 were scheduled, 8 were postponed. So 2 of the 10 games that were scheduled to be played today got pushed. Tomorrow, all 4 games that were scheduled got postponed. And on the 23rd, Thursday, probably a big day going into the holiday, 15 games had been scheduled, 10 were postponed. So this is probably fairly unsurprising. And to bring it back down to the local level, obviously the Wings have been dealing with a large outbreak. Ernie, obviously Bertuzzi got it a little while back. DeKaiser got it, and I have to go back and check. I'm sure there's been so many names that keep popping up, and we're just pulling guys out of Grand Rapids to get them to fill out a lineup. And we've heard Steve Yzerman talk about it a little bit about, he takes it seriously and the players take it seriously. He encourages them to be safe and get the booster and all that. You know, it, and this kind of goes to all of sports, but hockey specifically. Is there something the NHL as a whole can do to help these leagues continue? I know one of the big things was, is the easing the testing that they do like testing asymptomatic vaccinated players, which is everyone except Bertuzzi. So, do you think there's something like that, or do you think they should just take off the next couple weeks and try to kick back up into January?
So there are a couple options here. Let me get into first what I think they'll do. I think this pause will be it. I don't know if they're going to pause again. The
I
NHL and
think
the
you're right.
NHLPA just I don't think they want to deal with it. And I think what we're going to see and what we've already started to see is we're getting COVID level, like during the pandemic level guidelines being put in right now. Players can't interact with
Right.
people outside of the bubble. Like it's almost a bubble atmosphere being put in right now. I think that's
Yeah.
what they do. Now you mentioned it. Another option I've heard is stop testing asymptomatic players. Obviously, there are issues with that. They have families that you go home to. You don't want to spread. Like there are certainly
Yep.
issues with that, but that's another option I've heard thrown out there. But I think the most likely is just no pause, just this little pause. Other than that, just push
Yeah.
on forward. We're gonna get some weird games. I think we're gonna get some games like the Red Wings had against the Devils, where they were playing without Alex Nedeljkovic, Joe Veleno, Carter Rowney. They essentially had a glorified Grand Rapids line, like you mentioned. Taro Hirose and Riley Barber were up there all on that line.
Yep.
So I think that's what the NHL does. I think it's there's no way they're gonna there's no way they're gonna cancel or do anything like that because I think there's just too much money to be made.
Yeah, and I don't think yeah, canceling games I don't think having all these postponements will be made up because I just don't think the NHL, the owners aren't going to want to lose all that revenue from each of those games, especially because when they were in the bubble or not in the bubble, when they were doing the last year with the empty arenas, I mean the NHL was struggling to make enough revenue to justify actually playing a season. A lot of teams lost money. So they can't afford the owners got to be thinking, we can't afford to have a stoppage again. I do think the decision to basically say we're not playing in the Olympics is probably the best one. I get that a lot of these guys probably want to, but it's just a whole nother level, a chance of spreading on top of everything else. And, the NHL is thinking we want a season. We need a Stanley Cup champion at the end.
Well,
So,
and
yeah, I just wanted to
the
see what your
worst thing
thoughts on
about
that
that
are.
too, yeah, and the worst
Go
thing
ahead. Yeah.
with the COVID players, if they get COVID over there, according to the Olympic Committee's rules, they're subject to Chinese law, so they can be quarantined in China away from their NHL clubs for weeks if they test positive while they're in
Yep.
the. So it's just they just should not have gone.
Even an
I'm
even
glad they
bigger
didn't.
risk.
Honestly, like you mentioned, it would have been awesome to see Steven Stamkos and these guys finally get that Olympic moment, but just for safety and for the season's sake, just keep them at home.
Yeah. No, I'm in full agreement. And like you said, none of us probably have the answer. But something we're gonna see how it pans out. And like you said, these are athletes in peak condition who've, like I said, aside from Bertuzzi, I'm not trying to rag on the guy. It's just a fact. The entire NHL is vaccinated except for him. Um, but they're all vaccinated. So if they get it, they'll get their conditions, either asymptomatic or mild conditions. They won't go to the hospital and they'll recover and we go from there. I mean, at this point, if we're trying to live with COVID, at least in the sports world, seems like the only way forward, but we'll have to keep it going. But um at least before the stoppage, the Wings had went out on a very nice high note. Larkin getting his first career hat trick. That was really awesome to see. Which I can't believe it. It took. I can't believe Bertuzzi got a hat trick before he did. Um,
That's what
but
I
I
said.
do think it's
Bertuzzi and Raymond this year. I was shocked.
yeah, yep.
It was crazy.
But do you think, I was someone who I've always loved Larkin, but I was always like skeptical if he could fill out that captain's role. And I think this year, he's done a lot to prove that in his production and his on the ice and off the ice leadership. I mean, how do you think he's grown into having that C on his sweater?
So the first thing that pops into my mind with Larkin is that second thing you mentioned, the off ice stuff. That's what we saw last year
Mhm.
too, because we didn't see the production last year. But I think even last year he showed flashes that he truly is a great NHL captain. Just the way he leads his team, and this team has been a bit streaky this year, but they've been able to turn around 4 straight road losses to 5 straight wins. They've been able to do stuff that
Yep.
I don't know if they would have without Larkin at the top. And then in terms of production, like you
They're
touched
kind of
on,
they're kind of
he's
gritty.
excellent this year.
They're kind of a yeah, they're
Yeah,
kind of a gritty
last
team.
year's
Like
yeah, they're starting to last year a lot of them focused on getting like that two-way game. Like you could play well defensively and offensively. And it's starting to pay off this year. Like you mentioned, like you
yeah.
see goals made out of nothing. They'll steal something in the defensive zone or offensive zone and turn it into an offensive series out of nothing. Like, and Larkin does that a lot too. He's been excellent, and I don't know if he's like a number one center on a Stanley Cup winning team, but I think he's a captain on a Stanley Cup winning team.
Did you
Yep.
guys actually see the what is it, the viral video that was posted where Larkin crashed
With
into
the
the
beer?
boards and spilled the dude's beer, and he bought him, he gave him like $20 from this guy or whatever. I don't know, like, again, like you mentioned, like that
Which
is
at
a
LCA is probably the cost of about one is probably about the cost of one beer. So
right.
God, I
no,
can tell
that
you
was
from
awesome.
experience that a Labatt Blue is $13. It's so expensive.
There you go. Yeah, I would say fingers crossed. I'm going to a game in January. We'll see if it actually happens. If it doesn't get postponed, but
Griff, which game are you going to?
yeah, it'll be.
Oh, he doesn't even know.
I think Courtney just told me about. That's my fiance. It's a Christmas gift to me that I'm not supposed to know about, but she wanted to make sure I didn't make plans today. It's the 21st. It's against the Stars. At
Okay,
home.
okay.
But,
So I just
Oh,
yeah,
that's a good matchup.
I'm going to the Sabres game on
yeah.
the 15th. So fingers crossed that
Oh,
nothing
nice.
lasts too long.
Yeah.
I also got a Christmas gift.
But yeah, I
so.
think Larkin. Yeah, I think Larkin though. I think you made a very good point. He's not the number one center on a Stanley Cup team, but he is the captain because he's probably not the number one center on our team. Like he's pretty close, but like you could make an argument that he is potentially a number two center, and depending on what which of our picks develop and things like that in terms of production. Um, but he is definitely the leader of this team with how he's conducted himself with everything that has gone on. And I'm looking forward to seeing what he does, especially the more rookies we get. I mean, we've already seen the positive impact that he's probably had on, Sider and Raymond, so when Edvinson gets here and Kosa gets here, it's going to be exciting. And speaking of, Mo, Sider and Lucas Raymond and even Nedeljkovic, because he's still considered a rookie. I mean, well, you got to just be blown away with Steve Yzerman and his ability to, whether through the draft or through trading or free agency, he just finds every bit of talent and gets it for a value. I mean, it's just insane. Like, what do you think of these rookies and the year they're having, and then also, Yzerman as a GM and the moves he's made and his, trading and free agent moves? Because you could even throw in Vrana in there, who he makes this team probably a couple games better when he comes back to the lineup.
Yeah, I think like you said, those 3 rookies are a testament to just how good of a GM Steve Yzerman is. If you go pick player by player, Moritz Seider, when they picked him, a lot of people said that was a reach. They did, like, he was not projected
Yep.
in many drafts to be a top 10 pick, and then he goes to the Red Wings so high. It's like he's such a good talent evaluator, and just I think his greatest talent though is he doesn't fall for anything he sees. He's not going to listen to the guys outside the room. He listens to the guys inside of his draft room. Lucas Raymond as well. Lucas Raymond was just that one was a little bit easier, I'll be honest, but still just an excellent player, excellent pick. And then acquiring Nedeljkovic was just ridiculous. I think a third-round pick and Jonathan Bernier for a guy who finished as a finalist for the Calder last year. That's just a crazy piece of GM work. And then in terms of like the actual players, I can't remember the last time one team had two true contenders for the Calder Cup for Rookie of the Year. Because I think Sider and
Oh yeah.
Raymond could both very well make a case for it right now.
And I
Like,
believe Nedeljkovic is, because of, even though he played last year, he's still eligible for it this year. So like he has one of the best, rookie goaltenders. And honestly, I don't know what he is compared to the rest of the league, but man, when you see the saves he makes, like he just looks great. And then you think, oh, we got Kosa coming up the coming up the ranks, playing in World Juniors right now. It's like, man, okay, so we're set at goaltender, and like you said, we have two Calder. We're gonna have two Calder finalists. We have the best rookie defenseman. I think he's the highest, most points scored by a rookie defenseman this year in Sider, and then Raymond leading in assists, points, goals, every offensive category you can think of. Um, and Raymond obviously has a lot of the flash, but Mo Sider, I think, just has the the ways he is so subtly good is what makes me so excited about him. The pass that he had that set up, I think it was Bertuzzi's second goal in that game against the Devils the other night. I mean, it looked like something that Lidstrom would do when he was in his prime, and it was just like, that doesn't look like, a 19-year-old kid who's making his, rookie in his rookie year in the NHL. So I mean, those two, it's going to be very exciting, just with all the talent that
if I,
this team is acquiring. And like we said, what's coming down the pipeline? I mean, we have Kosa and Edvinson are obviously the two first-round picks that are in World Juniors. There's also a handful of third and fourth and second-round picks that are playing as well, that all eventually could come up to uh, take a position on this team, whether it's, a top line guy or even a fourth line guy that plays a role. Because it's important. We know, I think Wings fans, especially as of the last couple years, know how much a fourth line can burn you. Because you can't have your first line out all the time. So I think having those guys coming up, knowing the depth that this team is building out with, I mean, it's got to be exciting. If you're a Red Wings fan, and with all that being said, it's a very long wind up to a question, but what do you think now with where they're at with Vrana? I think he's coming back he should be back in the next month or two, I believe. I believe his
February,
injury
yep.
put him coming back February. That's what I thought. Yep. With him coming back and all those things considered, what is the rest of the season outlook this year? And then when do you see their playoff window really opening in terms of them, making the playoffs and, being competitive in the playoffs?
So I'll start with this year first, the outlook this year. So currently, they are in a playoff spot technically due to points. They're a bit behind in terms of winning percentage. Boston. If I'm being honest,
Yep.
this year I don't think they make the playoffs. They have to compete with Boston and Pittsburgh essentially for those two wild card spots in the East, and I just don't think they're as good as either of those teams. They're not as veteran, I should say. I mean, when you have guys like Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci, and Brad Marchand atop a line, it's hard to pick against that. And then in Pittsburgh, you have Crosby, you have some crazy pieces still. So I don't think they get there this year. But man, in terms of playoff windows, I could see him making it next year. You mentioned
Yep.
Simone Edvinson, and he has been one of the most impressive prospects so far. When he was drafted, I'll be honest, I was a little disappointed because I got really into the draft this year, and I saw him as kind of a raw prospect who could, who's going to take a few years to bake, and he's proven me wrong. He is scoring, I believe, half a point per game last time I checked in the in the SHL, the
Yeah.
Swedish Hockey League. He's been excellent. He's improving his offensive
Yeah.
game. He's improving his defensive game. Once he slots in, if he makes a push for the roster like Sider did last year, and he does that next year, this team is a playoff team.
Yeah.
Sider, if he
Absolutely.
continues to grow, Raymond, I think next year might be a bit optimistic, but based on how this is trending, I think it opens up next year.
And then you also got to think, what moves does Iserman make to acquire? I think I don't think he won't open up the purse and blow it. He won't, get a bloated contract for an old guy. I mean, that's especially when that's what really held the Wings down for so long, was signing a bunch of veteran guys to kind of keep it was taping the car back together while it was running 70 miles an hour down the freeway. But if there's a guy Yzerman wants in free agency to help them, it's that last piece of the puzzle to make the push. I mean, he'll do it. I mean, it's funny. It's like you said, with Edvinson, you said you were kind of disappointed with it because you thought maybe you want someone else. I've just learned to say, well, Stevie picked it, so he must know something I
The
don't.
Yzer plan.
And every single time, because people said it about Mo, and then he turned into the number one prospect from that draft class. And Raymond, like you said, was, sometimes it is just that easy. It's close your eyes and take the best guy there. And Edvinson, it's the same thing where it's like these guys just keep turning into the best players in hockey in terms of, raw prospect and where they're ranked. It's
well,
yeah, I
he's
do
been
think it's
excellent
exciting.
he's just been excellent even in like those later rounds. Elmer Soderblom, a
Yep.
guy he was picked late, I think like 6th round. He's excellent this year. Now, do I think he's necessarily good NHL prospect yet? No, but he's proving me wrong. William Wallander has had some excellent seasons. He's last season especially. I'm really excited about a couple of the guys they snagged this year. Shai Buium over at University of Denver, Carter Mazur. Some of these, like you were saying, they don't necessarily slot into the top lines, and they're not going to be game-breaking talents, but they're just going to make this team so well-rounded in just a few years.
Yep,
I'm just really
exactly.
excited about the future of this team and what he's building.
And it's important to have guys in Grand Rapids. Injuries happen. It's next man up. I mean, you hear that in football a lot, but it can apply to any sport, especially in hockey. You need a good taxi team, really, because you never know when a guy goes down. So if you can hit on some, even if, like you said, they're not game breaking prospects, but they can come and fill a role when needed. I mean, there's a lot of value in that. All right, I got two things to kind of round this out with, because the two Red Wings. I think I have the two biggest question marks on. One I'm more optimistic on, and one I'm more on currently. The one I'm more meh on is Rasmussen. What do you make of him? I mean, obviously we've seen some struggles this year. He scored some goals. He's gotten some good shots on net and was able to make the most of the opportunities. But I think we've seen him struggle defensively. And he seems to just he gets the puck bullied off him. He just always seems he can never win those puck battles. And for a guy who's 6'6" and skates, it's like, man, like I expect him to be so much more of, he doesn't have to be an enforcer, but just, someone who can control the ice more. And I just feel like he has not been able to do that. I mean, so what are your thoughts on him? Does he have a place on this team going forward? And what do you think he needs to do to kind of even out that his play?
So last year, Rasmussen's been a really big disappointment to me. I'll be completely honest. I've been really disappointed with
Yep.
how he's played last year, mostly because last year he was taking some major strides. So a player like Michael Rasmussen, who's not the most highly skilled, who's 6'7", just a big guy and an okay skater, what you want him to do is set screens at the net, just be a big body at the net, win battles at the net. So a Nick Leddy or a
Almost be
Chrona
like
can
a
rip one
Thomas
from the blue
Holmstrom.
line. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just fill it up at the crease. You want him to be winning individual puck battles. You want him to just bully people along the sides, especially guys who are significantly smaller than him. And then lastly, you want him to be competent defensively. And I think he's only been one of those so far this year. I have not seen him setting screens almost ever. He doesn't seem to be jockeying for position properly at the front of the net. He, like you said, he's getting bullied by guys who are like 5'9". And no offense to my
Yeah.
short kings, but man, like a 6'7" guy has to win those puck battles. Like he has to get in there and win those, and
Absolutely.
he's not. Um, and then defensively, he's been okay in his own zone. But in terms of maintaining possession and finishing on chances, he's just been awful. He almost looks scared to have the puck on his stick. He'll get forward, he'll get it on there, and he'll just, except for one play this year, he's whiffed on it. I'm really disappointed. He has another year on contract, and he has looked good the past couple of games. So like, I'll cool down on my. I don't want to say hate because I like Rasmussen, but my criticism, my heavy criticism, I'll calm down on it for
Yep.
now. But he's got to really show something the next couple of years, or he's not going to have a role on this team. And even at best, I think a role
Yep.
with him is a fourth line center.
Yeah, no, I'm I'm in pretty much full agreement there. And the thing with Steve Yzerman, I mean, really, unless he drafted you, and unless your name's Dylan Larkin because he's the captain, if he thinks you're not producing and he can get a value for you in terms of draft capital or another player like similar to the Mantha Vrana trade, because honestly, I think with what we got for out of Vrana and the Mantha thing there, like Mantha was never meant to be a top line guy, whereas on the Capitals, I think he flourishes much better. And Vrana coming here is honestly a very replaceable player. And I think if Rasmussen gets that same point, if we're at a point next year and there's a team that needs a fourth line center who's trying to make a run, I would not be shocked at all if Stevie moved him to get something. I don't think he'll get a first rounder by any means, but if he can get a third round pick for him or something along those lines. I mean, it is a starting center on your fourth line in the NHL. It's not cheap. I think he'll do it. So we'll see. Obviously, I always root for the guy. I obviously want the players on our team to be the ones who work out so we can, it's one step closer to winning a cup again. But we'll have to see what happens with Big Rass. The other player I want to talk about, and this is the one I'm more optimistic on because I think he plays very, very well. He he can't get lucky to save his life. Like it's getting to the point where I feel bad for him, and it's Philip Zadina. I was ecstatic when they drafted him. I loved I'm going to fill their pucks with their nets with pucks. Comment on draft night for all the people that passed on him, and I think he plays. I think he plays really well. Like he makes some I think he can make some really, really good moves with the puck, and he's got a shot. Like he can be a sniper. He just hasn't been able to bury a goal, and it's to the point where it's comical because with people are pulling up the analytics, and for him to have the string of luck he's having with the amount of quality shots on net that he's had and to not score, he's like 7 goals below the average based on how many quality shots on net he's gotten and taken. So this lead back around to the question, do you think Zadina gets it together? Is he just in kind of a bad luck dry spell? And what do you think his role on this team is going forward? Is he, a second line forward with the potential to be a first liner, or do you think he's just going to kind of hover that third and fourth line, for a while?
So Zadina has been so frustrating this year. But the thing is, you and I and every fan on earth are not nearly as frustrated as he is at himself. When you see him make just miss it just by this much, he grips the stick. I've seen him break the stick. He'll yell, he'll scream, he'll shout because he knows he can do better, and I think he can too. Like you said, the underlying statistics, otherwise than like Corsi 4 and some of the possession, in terms of shots, he has the second most shots on the team. He has 71 shots, I think, on the season right now, behind only Dylan Larkin. He's good in the offensive zone. He'll strip pucks from other forwards, other defensemen, create offensive series out of nothing. I mentioned that earlier about how the Wings have been doing that lately, and that he's one of the guys who does it most. He'll make plays where it's just ridiculous. He'll just outhandle someone, take the puck, and rip a shot. It just hasn't found the back of the net yet. So if you look at like stats, I think he's got to regress to the mean at some point because this is statistically significantly substandard to where he should be. I think he regresses to the mean.
Yeah.
And if he doesn't, you mentioned him. I'm going to draw some Anthony Mantha comparisons. Zadina was not drafted by Yzerman. I could see a scenario in which if he just can't fill the pucks, or fill the net with pucks, he could be one dealt if the price is right. I don't think Yzerman is at the point of the rebuild where he's just going to start exchanging for players. He still wants good value, so it has to be a king's ransom that comes. But I could see him trading Zadina if he can't fill the net. But if he works out, and like you said, like we're always rooting for that. I love Zadina. I loved his comment on draft night. If it works out, he is a second line, borderline first line winger, I think. He is a lethal goal scorer when he's good. He's a good playmaker, and now he has a two-way game. I love Zadina, but man, he's got to get rid of whatever hex is on him, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, Hex is right. I mean, it's just I can't believe the guy hasn't scored more goals. And you're right. He is a statistical anomaly, and hopefully he splits. Eventually, like you said, it regresses back to the mean. But in the meantime, we'll just have to keep watching, and hopefully he I don't want to say gets his shit together because he's playing well. It's just the numbers aren't there to show how well he's playing. But I think he'll keep playing. I think he's gonna pull through. But I do think you're right. He wasn't drafted by Yzerman, so I could totally see a situation where he's dealt, like you said, if the price is right. I mean, like I said, I think anyone's on the table that isn't a rookie or Dylan Larkin. Like I said, could I see Yzerman dealing Bertuzzi? Yeah, but he would need a king's ransom for it. Like, he's not going to do it for, just a first rounder because Bertuzzi outputs more than that, and he's a locker room leader more than that. So there's a lot of the tangibles and intangibles when looking at that. And the same thing goes for Zadina because he has that raw talent. It's just a matter of converting that into scoring some goals. So, yeah, man, that's all I got Red Wings wise. I mean, I think it's kind of nice. They are probably our best team in Detroit currently in terms of where they're at in a rebuild and the talent they're accruing. They're fun again. They're generating buzz. The only other team kind of close to that would be the Tigers, maybe, sorta.
Yeah,
The Pistons kind of suck, but at least they got Cade, and the Lions are the Lions. So it's like, at least we got the Red Wings to give us some fun, something to look forward to on a weeknight and watch a local team do well.
Yeah. Yeah, I will talk now.
Yeah, hi Brad, welcome back.
Yeah, sorry. But yeah, no, I'm excited. I think just to hop on that, the Tigers are kind of still in that realm of they're sort of disappointing me. You know what I mean? And it's you don't trust the front office. You don't you're not happy with the history. Whereas with the Red Wings, you like the front office now that Yzerman's there. The history again with Yzerman, what he did Tampa Bay, you're hoping that he replicates it right here in Detroit. It's the only team in the city that I can honestly, genuinely say that they're trending upwards. And I think that's it's really fun. It's, again, like you mentioned, they're a fun team. Some nights it might cause chaos, because you'll watch them blow a 4-goal lead out of nowhere. But then all of a sudden, Dylan Larkin's out here with a hat trick 4 nights later or something like that. So it's in the same season, breath of fresh air.
Yeah, the Tigers are in just a. I have an implicit trust in Steve Yzerman, and I just do not have the same for the Tigers front office. Especially after they missed on Correa, there's just been some steps like that this year that just have disappointed me. I don't know. We'll see what he does with spending after the lockout ends. Hopefully it'll end, but
if the lockout ends,
yeah, we're there. There's no no hockey until a while, and then we got MLB. Well, the hockey thing won't last as long, but it's kind of a weird spot, I think, that we're in right now. But Alex, where you write for or you're an editor at Octopus Thrower. Where can we find you? What are your stuff?
So I am pretty neutral on most social media sites. I think the only one that you can really I'm active on is Twitter. That's at Alex Pick Faber, I believe it is. I just retweet a bunch of Red Wings and Michigan State stuff, all Michigan State athletics. So if you're into either of those, come check me out there. I'll tweet on my articles, that good stuff. But yeah, that's my main social.
Perfect. That sounds great. Thank you so much for joining us. And we will see everyone tomorrow when we record episode number 33, which will be so exciting. But until then, bid you adieu.